Rad Magazine, the voice of medical imaging and clinical oncology. For 50 years, Rad Magazine has been the leading publication in its field and has a wide and influential readership. Rad Magazine works in partnership with AXREM, offering members reduced rates on RadLink. Check out your members' document in your weekly newsletter. And it is also the proud sponsor of the UKIO AXREM Drinks Reception. Find out more about Rad Magazine in the link in the show notes. Welcome to AXREM Insights, developing healthcare through Medtech and innovation. Join Melanie Johnson and Sully Edgington as they talk with our industry leaders and experts.
Hello and welcome to the final episode in this series. I'm Melanie Johnson and I'm here with Sally Edgington. Today we had the pleasure to be speaking to both Bob Child, Chief Commercial Officer at Soliton IT and AXREM's Imaging IT Special Focus Group Convener, as well as Saduf Ali-Drakesmith, Head of Sales at Smart Reporting and AXREM's Imaging IT Special Focus Group Vice Convener. So welcome Bob and Saduf, and thank you for being on our show today. Now let's get started by handing over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your story.
Yeah, sure. So clinical by background, and then fell into clinical IT. So I've been involved in lots and lots of imaging IT projects, reporting radiographer, one of the first consultant radiographers in the UK, way back when. I currently work at Smart Reporting. We're an AI software company for reporting workflows. And a little fun fact about me is I surf very badly. And for those of you in the industry who have seen me over the last couple of years hobbling and on crutches and all that sort of thing, that is all surfing related. So as I said, I do it very badly.
Oh dear. Right. So you just said, obviously, you transitioned from clinical into IT. So what made you do that?
I was made.
You was made. Who forced you? We'll have a word.
Literally, though, that's kind of how it happened. So my old radiology services manager, this was during the time of like National Programme for IT, essentially said, "Oi, Saduf, go to this meeting and tell them no." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, no worries." And I came back from the meeting and I remember saying, "Carol, you can't say no. It's a government thing." And she just went, "Oh, just deal with it." And so I dealt with it. And that was the National Programme for IT PACS procurement at Bedford General Hospital. So we went from film to filmless over a weekend. Yes, I was crazy enough to think that a big bang approach would be the right way to do it. It was not, by the way. Not that it went badly. It was just if I chose to do it again, I would definitely not go big bang. So that's how I sort of fell into imaging IT, PACS, RIS related. And then from there, I moved on from a small district general hospital to a large teaching hospital, one of the largest, most complex hospitals in the UK, one extreme to the other. I went to UCLH and did a bit more there and really got into that digital transformation. And then I left about 10 years ago now and was headhunted out into commercial. And that's what brings me here.
I never look back. Clearly.
Sometimes look back. Sometimes. You know what? If anyone's worked in clinical, those Friday, Saturday nights in A&E where you used to have a laugh and, you know, there's just a certain camaraderie around working frontline that I think you do miss. I think you miss like the buzz, you miss the adrenaline rush of just, clinical. But then I see what good we can do on this side of things. And then you miss it a little less. You still realize that you are having an impact on patient care, but it's just in a more strategic and vendor related way, right? Being able to shape what your peers and ex-colleagues are using to deliver patient care still means that you are making a difference.
Yeah. So you get your thrills now from surfing, clearly.
Some, yes. As I said, they're bad thrills too. But I do. I love the water. I love it. I'm just not great in it.
Oh, bless. Thank you. And over to you then, Bob. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your history?
Well, I start with, I can tell you the other side of Saduf because Saduf was one of my customers. So I can tell you the real Saduf side. And as for surfing, well, what can I say? about wetsuits, etc. But anyway, let's not go there.
Moving on swiftly.
Moving on quickly. So let's start by saying I started as a debt collector, but actually as a credit controller for one of our major healthcare global companies, where I remained 23 years. Starting in credit control got me into contracts and got me towards service. And that was really where my background was. And that took me into PFI contracts and the national contract, which is where I became, in theory, or linked with healthcare IT and all the various systems within that. So I played a major part in the national program. I was the healthcare IT manager for Philips. I was there 23 years. We delivered firstly the Sectra software and then Philips software into London with the LSP with BT. I then moved through, and logical progression was as healthcare IT manager, doing lots of different regional deployments, etc. At the time, and as Saduf has already said, the major win of the national program was everyone in England became filmless. So moving from film to digital, and I think we can honestly say that the risk packs was probably the only success of the national program. So it was a real successful thing. Since then, as I say, I joined Sectra as their sales manager. We had great success at the end of the national program around London, and I joined Soliton 10 years ago. Soliton are a radiology information system company. We sold our first RIS into St George's Tooting at 2012, the area I came from. And basically, today I'm the Chief Commercial Officer and obviously the AXREM Healthcare Imaging IT Special Focus Group Chairman. A little thing about me, I love AFC Wimbledon. We're going, as people know, hopefully up this year to League One. But the Wimbledon story, and I've followed Wimbledon all my life, so it's been an amazing journey and followed them since I was 7. And I'm also a keen golfer, although perhaps not as good as I would like to be. So that's me, really.
And anyone who knows you, Bob, is always looking out for your golfing shirts to see what colour you're wearing next time.
Yes, so, yes. Yeah. I have about 90, so and they're all colour coded in the wardrobe. So yes, I'm always on the lookout for a new colour that I haven't got, but I'm not sure it exists. Even Dulux don't have that many colours, but never mind.
Oh wow! Excellent.
Yes. But as I say, yeah, it's as you know, golf to anyone. My wife says it's men, sticks, and balls. That's what she calls it. But I think for me, it's just a lovely break from work and everything else in a way that I like to relax.
Yeah, and you have to switch off sometimes, don't you? Work can be so intense, you have to have that switch off. So thank you for sharing.
I would say to you, and I think it's important, the radiology industry is amazing. The actual people that I've met in the 34 plus years that I've done it, the customers, the people I work with, their dedication to radiology, if people really understood, I've had scenarios where hospitals out of action to people leaving Christmas Day, whatever day, birthdays, weddings, to do work just to help colleagues. We are an amazing industry, and I can't think of an industry that's like it. I truly would call competitors friends, because everyone tries to work together, and it's such a good industry to work in, hence why I've been here such a long time. Our industry is something phenomenal.
Yeah, and I must say, actually, from Sally and I's point of view, we say this often, don't we, Sally, that we are so lucky and privileged to have the members that we have. You make our jobs a million times easier than it should be. So, as I say, from our point of view, thank you for that as well.
Yeah.
We're very lucky. we're very lucky to have such an engaged membership, and we can tell in all the meetings that we host that members are in it for the greater good as well, you know, because the work that all our members do and that AXREM does indirectly can make a difference to patients, and I think that's what drives all of us. So I absolutely agree. And I think moving on now, I think that the listeners would really like to find out more about the Imaging IT Special Focus Group and what your priorities are. But I think we also have to talk about the manifesto. We obviously had an amazing launch of our manifesto at Bletchley Park recently, and it would just be good to kind of delve into some of the priorities within the Special Focus Group and the manifesto. So if okay, I'll go over to Bob first, just if you want to talk a bit about the priorities.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sally. I think you're absolutely right. And firstly, can I say what a wonderful event we had at Bletchley Park, and the guests, the speakers, the people that attended. It was an amazing venue, an amazing day, and probably one of the highlights of my career, for sure. Probably the best way to sum it up is for the AXREM Imaging Manifesto is really why we done this. And that was it. It was our vision was to be the leading voice in medical imaging and radiology. We want to drive innovation. We want to promote best practices and advocate for policies and support and the delivery of high quality and accessible imaging services to patients worldwide. And I think, you know, as a group, I think we really have strived to do that and strive to make the patient experience so much better. And what a wonderful group to work in with such great industry experts. You know, the strength of us together is amazing. And I think that statement about where we wanted this vision of being that leading voice. And I honestly believe over the last couple of years, AXREM have achieved that. And I honestly believe our AXREM Imaging Manifesto that we launched proved that we have actually carried out our vision. So it was a very proud moment and a really good day.
I totally concur, Bob, and it was one of my career highlights as well. And I think seeing the level of attendee and speaker really does show how far AXREM has come. Saduf, did you want to share any insights about our manifesto launch or the manifesto itself?
Yeah, I just want to agree that first up, what a cracking day. Like the sun was shining, an amazing venue, fantastic speakers. And I think also for me, the level of engagement and the presence that we had from people just shows how committed and passionate this industry is about what we do, right? There wouldn't have been as many of us turning up and being a part of that launch if it wasn't so intrinsically important and embedded within all of us that we fully believed what was in that manifesto as well. And that manifesto really provides like a clear and future focused strategy for imaging and services across the UK. And for me, it really highlighted like how critical it is for all of us to come together as that collective voice for really transforming radiology IT. And, you know, some of the priorities that came out of that around cybersecurity, innovation, and interoperability really show like we want to align industry and NHS and police policy bodies to to almost serve as like a catalyst for delivering better and connected imaging services for patients and clinicians, right? You know, I spoke at the beginning about where my background comes from. It's that passion that's driven like what we're pushing for in those priorities in that imaging IT manifesto.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you look at all of the calls to action within the manifesto, I think we see a theme. So it's around bringing the IT community together. It's about healthcare providers and technology vendors collaborating closely in developing integrated imaging solutions, around stakeholders adopting and adhering to established interoperability standards, you know, working with the NHS to provide AXREM with key contacts to liaise with in the event event of a cyber attack. You know, when you look through the different, there's quite a few calls to actions, and I would say to our listeners, please do read the document, and we'd love to engage with you if there's anything there on the calls to action that you feel you want to engage with us on, or that actually you can help with.
Well, I think Sally, it's probably a little bit more than that as well, because what has come out of that since is that as we've seen already some great feedback, and being asked to attend various presentations or meetings around some of our calls for action. And I think it's really my job as chairman and our job as a group is to ensure that these calls for actions are followed up on, and we treat them as our priorities, because we honestly, when we set these calls for action, we honestly believe they would make such a major difference to not only our industry, but to the NHS and to patients. So I think our job is to make sure that these calls for action are followed through and we get the best result possible.
Yeah, and the calls to action within the paper are our priorities for the special focus group. So obviously the manifesto is almost the easy bit. We've launched a manifesto, we've put out there what we want, and now over the next year or two we will then start working through those calls to action, reaching out to the right stakeholders and ensuring that we can, you know, not necessarily fix everything we're asking for, but work with the right stakeholders that have ownership of some of the things that we need, to make sure that they see the industry perspective and some of the challenges that you guys might face.
Yeah, I mean, a great one is the DPIA and DTAC processes and procedures. You know, if we can standardise that, it make life so much easier for all suppliers, all NHS staff. You know, the NHS, the NHS England, DHSC. It's a win-win for everybody. So, you know, that's a great example where we can save lots of red tape, lots of cost, and that money can be passed back to the patient, and people will have more time to deliver the services and concentrate on patient delivery rather than administration.
Absolutely, and we've been working really hard on DTAC the last sort of 18 months to 2 years with NHS England, the Department of Health and Social Care, and a full review's been done, and we're actually going to be doing some work over the summer. There's kind of some short, medium and long-term goals that have now been set in line with all the recommendations that we made, so that's a really positive thing to take forward. In the paper, in the manifesto, and obviously we've also got our cybersecurity working group, cybersecurity has become a big concern for our members, and I just wondered if you guys can explain why. So Saduf, are you happy to start on this one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like uh, healthcare organizations like the ones that we work with and our members, like the reason it's so high of a concern is essentially it's like high value targets with really high stakes consequences. Like lives are literally at stake if our hospitals are hit by big cybersecurity attacks. And we've also already seen some of the consequences of those targeted attacks. You know, there's been enough where emergency diagnostics have gone down, records um, can't be seen. You literally can't treat patients. And it's not just for the duration of that cyber attack, right? There's a massive knock-on effect that just compounds and adds to the pressures that our NHS is facing. So I think that's why, like, that's the biggest reason why it's such a massive concern for us, you know. And if we think away from like the biggest concern, which is patient lives, the cost of an attack on a publicly funded system like the NHS is devastating. You know, systems being down, it's not just recovering data, but it's recovery of staff, it's clinical services that are cancelled, it's the data that's stolen, it's, you know, the longer term damage as well that's caused by cyber attacks on our sort of customers and our industry.
Yeah.
Did you
And
want to add
adding
something,
to,
Bob? Because I know that this is like a
yeah.
big area that we worked on in the manifesto. And
Absolutely. And again, I think maybe just to take an analogy, something from outside our industry, if we look recently at the Marks and Spencers and Co-op cyber attack, they were saying that it's cost Marks and Spencers 300 million in turnover, and their online services won't be back to in full operation until probably the end of July. But if you take it also the credibility and the marketing and the loss of customers, etc., that cost will double or treble. How many customers of Marks and Spencers have now gone elsewhere to buy their goods, and will they stay elsewhere with buying their goods? And it really is the same with healthcare in a way that you can see what damage it can do to a business. It's very scary. It affects everything. And we said in our manifesto that we believe cybersecurity really should be part of our national security. Our national security is at stake, as Saduf said. If we can't carry out operations and perform, all sorts of tests on patients, then in theory, we really can't deliver healthcare, and that is a national security problem.
Agreed.
So it's an amazing, it could be catastrophic. It really could, and that's why we have to take these things serious. And if I look back just at some of the things AXREM have done, we've done quite a lot. And the access controls, when you look at our MFA document, the multi-factor authentication, it's the great advice for suppliers and customers of what should be being used to enhance the security. As somebody said, the criminals or us have to stay one step ahead. So what is good today may not be good in a month's time. So it's a continued battle to stay ahead of the criminals. And I have to say, I think everything that we have done and the things that are in the manifesto, the work that's being done by the cyber group, what we're trying to help the NHS do, I think is really the correct steps and the right direction to travel. And we've seen recently that the DHSC are issuing, or National Cyber Centre issuing a mandate for cyber security and a charter, and asking all suppliers to sign up to that. I think it's a really great step forward. And again, I'm very proud to say that AXREM were one of the people that called for that and called for that to be done. And it's being done. So there's been some really good work by all the AXREM members.
Yeah, and I must at this point point our listeners to our Strengthening Cybersecurity in the UK Healthcare, a strategic approach for continuity and resilience paper that we published a few months ago. And in there, we actually do state that the healthcare IT sector, with its complex digital infrastructure and critical service nature, stands as a prime target in the evolving cyber threat landscape, offering numerous entry points for exploitation by malicious actors. So we know, like you say, Bob, we've seen big companies, and obviously if the NHS got hit with a big cyber attack, that is obviously newsworthy around the world, which is what these people want. But critically, our patients are going to massively suffer. So like you say, the work we're doing in this area is really important, and it isn't just these papers, it's in our strategic priorities overarching the whole organisation, because almost every medical device that our members provide are in an IT system, so would be affected by a cyber attack.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, like you say there, Sally, we know that, through our own experiences and vendors, we know that many NHS systems still run on, outdated infrastructure. There's poor patching, security practices aren't really where they should be, which is what makes them easier to exploit. It also means they're harder to defend. And, as Bob said, it means that we're then slower to recover from an incident. I don't know if you remember the WannaCry attack in 2017. You know, Bob, you were just talking there about, you know, quite a short attack and how much that's cost M&S. I remember the WannaCry attack, I think cost the NHS something like 90 something million pounds, and we lost over 20,000 appointments. Like, that's just mad, right? And it's why I think we're all so passionate about cybersecurity and why it's one of the biggest priorities on our manifesto.
Yes, and I'd just like to give a real life example. I met with a radiologist who was at Guy's and Tommy's after 4 days of the latest cyber attack, and she was in tears, absolute tears, because she couldn't perform her duties, and everyone was running around, everyone was trying to do their best to keep things moving. You know, the effect on healthcare professionals is just immense, and you know, these people are so proud of what they do, and when they're not able to do it, it's so personal, and you know, it affected all of us while that was going on. But it affects you because at the end of the day, it could be a member of your family that's not getting treated. So I think, you know, as I say, it's very easy to get lost in cybersecurity, that it's a technical thing, but it's not. It's a patient. Remember, there's a patient at the end of this, and it could be a member of your family. So it's so important.
And we're all patients at the end of the day, aren't we? So
Yeah.
it is important for all of us.
Yeah.
So obviously we've kind of touched on what we've been doing so far, what we're doing at the moment. So obviously kind of like looking further ahead and horizon scanning, what's next for the SFG? I know we've kind of touched on the manifesto calls to action will form kind of our priorities as such, but what else? I don't know if you want to start, Bob.
Yes, certainly. So at the moment, we've seen a number of frameworks due for renewal. So there are some renewals of frameworks this year, which all the suppliers are working on. And AXREM, we've made, you could say, as a group, some changes to the perceived T's and C's, or requested some changes. So there's some good work being done in that area, and that obviously will continue. I think there is a big concern at the moment around integration with other systems and standards being used. And of course, the big one is artificial intelligence and how we integrate and how artificial intelligence is used. So I think that will be a very big sort of discussion point in, you know, the coming year or so, as we see more and more, you could say, integrations of AI into our current systems within the NHS. So I suppose to me they are the two major ones. But of course, you know, whilst you're doing that, what you have to remember is also look backwards. You know, we never know what's around the corner, and of course, the one that comes to mind was COVID. You know, if COVID or something similar happened again, are we in a better position? And I would say one thing we have learned is whatever we need to do, I believe we're actually ready now. We're organised. We've got some really good things in place as AXREM to be able to, you know, help and each other as well as the NHS in the event of an incident or something similar to that. And I think we've learned a lot from that. And I want to make sure those, you could say, actions are continually looked at and improved, so that if we do ever see anything similar to that again, that we are ready and willing to do whatever we can, even though it may be small, to help everyone get through the next whatever is thrown at us.
Yeah, and Saduf, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think like AI is a major topic that's coming up, and I think, you know, Bob makes a great point there around, you know, how does that integrate interoperability, you know, bringing AI into systems. But I think for me as well, I want to like one of the priorities I think like the Imaging IT focus group could look at is around defining and driving ethical AI adoption. How do we shape policy on validation? How do we shape deployment and governance, right? I'd love to see the group working with MHRA, with NICE, with the NHS AI lab to really like start to align industry offerings and make sure that they're compliant and meet regulations that we've had some input on. And then following on from that, like another one that I'd love to look at because it's so closely related to AI, is around the ethical use of patient imaging data. We're generating petabytes of data compared to what we used to generate, right? More data than ever before. And we know like it's being used in things like research and it's being used in AI training models. But I do wonder if like the focus group could help towards creating things like best practice frameworks for things like data sovereignty, for consent, around transparency of use. It's not just around I want the Imaging IT focus group to almost look beyond just what we're doing today with imaging and AI, right? And yes, integration is absolutely key, but I feel like the work that we've done in the past with interoperability means that we're probably a bit more ahead of where we thought we might be with AI integrations, but it's all the other side of it. Like, how do we use it safely? How do we make sure we're using it in the right way? Can we look at using it in a way that reduces burnout? Can we support productivity tools? Can we, streamline the way that we use it? I think for me, the group should and could show real leadership in this space to drive like trustworthy innovation and responsible innovation.
Yeah, and what's really nice is how well the Imaging IT and the AI group work so closely together. Having our joint meeting every year is just crucial, isn't it? So we can have those crossover conversations as well. So no, absolutely, and we've got the experts, so why not? If people are willing to, and we're able to do things like that, then absolutely, let's get ahead of the game and put this in place.
Yeah, and just to say as well, to point out to our listeners that we do have a separate AI special focus group. So obviously there is a lot of crossover between Imaging IT and AI, and there's some fantastic work being done by the AI group, which will be on another podcast. We're having an AI podcast as well. And we also lead on an AI think tank where you mentioned some of those organisations, Saduf, NHS England, MHRA, NICE. We engage with a lot of the societies and royal colleges within our area and bring all of those key stakeholders together for AI to really kind of try and align our messaging and align our work, so and also not duplicate effort. So I think some of that stuff is already being done, and yes, we've got further obviously to go with it.
I also think, Saduf, that as I say, the joint meeting, this will be a great opportunity to raise those points, and discuss them and say where do they actually sit. And I completely concur with you with it. I think you're absolutely right, and we need to ensure that whichever group it is doing this, that these points are covered, because I think everyone benefits from what you said. Absolutely everyone benefits, and I totally agree with you. We need to ensure these points are covered, and it doesn't matter which group or a combination of groups. We just need to make sure that these things are taken forward and are addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just changing the tone up a little bit of the podcast, I am obviously biased, but I think that AXREM does a great job. I think when you look at where we were 6 years ago and where we are today, we are a completely different organisation. But I'm bound to say that. So my question to you guys is, what do you think are the benefits of being involved in AXREM?
I think you're lying out your teeth.
Group?
Total lying. Where is this coming from? What do you mean, good work you've done?
I'll let you take over there then, Saduf.
I absolutely agree. Honestly, if I've not been vocal enough about the change that the current team and Sally yourself have spearheaded. Like AXREM to me used to be this thing that, you know, my procurement team or my, you know, my marketing team would be like, do you want this, sign this off? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. I don't really know what I do with it. I just sit there. But that was years ago. And now it's an absolute must spend for me. Like, one, you get to be in an awesome group and you get to be on wicked podcasts like this. But for me, like the voice that you get and the fact that you actually get to have a say in shaping things like national imaging policy and standards, you actually get a chance to be part of the process and advocate for the change you want to see rather than just having to deal with the change that's been thrust upon you. And you've been fundamental to that, Sally. You and the team have just been so key in making sure our industry voice is heard in national decisions and helping define the rules that shape our market. Like, that's one of the biggest benefits for me out of being with AXREM. The fact that you
Can I
then
just add to that now that
go
I
on.
am going to be able to get out of the room that I'm currently sitting in because my head's going to be so big.
I said Sally. No, did I mean Sally? I meant Mel and Naomi. Like, not.
I literally feel like this is one of those questions where we like, and it's genuinely not. I think it's just good for listeners and companies that maybe have watched us from afar and might be considering membership.
Oh, don't pretend, Sally. You just want to hear it.
I'll take my fiver later.
I'll come in there. I'll come in there.
He's going to bring
because,
it back down to earth.
I've been in the industry an awful long time and been on AXREM a lot longer than everybody else on this call. I've seen the real change, and it's amazing what we've achieved in the last 4 or 5 years, whichever it's been. It's just been an amazing change. I mean, some of the highlights for me were the Future Leaders Council. You know, I remember going to my first AXREM meeting and being scared to speak. Now, when you look at our executive, there's so many, every time we go there, there's new members. Everyone gets a fair chance to speak. Everyone is looked at as just as important, whether you're a small company, a large corporate, whatever you are. Everyone is given the same opportunity, and everyone is listened to, and everyone has the same respect for everybody else. I think, as I said, it's this camaraderie within our industry that also helps. But the real benefit of it is the amount of knowledge and information that we have shared. It
Like
is an amazing thing. It really is, and I would encourage anyone to join it. All the things that you've said, you're absolutely right. The events we've done, the thing, you know, it's just been an incredible journey, and it's down to Sally and you and the team. Of course, you do it, but as you said earlier on in this podcast, it was down to also the members and giving up their time to actually make this work. And I have to congratulate everyone, because I would just say to anyone, if you want to be part of this business, join AXREM, get in the right special focus group. You have a great opportunity to meet colleagues, meet people in your industry, and more importantly, anything, hear what's being said, learn from it, take in that information. It's very valuable to your company within your industry. So I would encourage everyone. And just the last thing, from a personal point of view, it's raised my profile dramatically. When you look at it, everyone knows you, everyone wants to talk to you, members want to share things with other members. It's been as I said, it's created camaraderie. And I have to say, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, we work in the very best industry, and it's credit to everyone who works in it.
There's not many places where you can actually collaborate in a meaningful way with your competition and your peers, right? On challenges that affect all of us. there's not a platform that you can have that honesty and openness and transparency all together for what essentially is the greater good, which is our patients.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to add to that. For me, it is a team effort. It's all about the people, our members, the staff team, our stakeholders. We are one big community. It does feel like, and when I say this to people, it's so cheesy, but we are like one big happy family. I do feel like that. And I would say that if I had to explain or describe AXREM in 6 words, it would be open, transparent, inclusive, informative, engaging, and collaborative. And what a fantastic, 6 words just to sum it up. And I do think that's what we've become. So I'm now going to hand over to Mel, who is going to completely mix things up.
Mix it up. Just before we move on, I was just trying to work out, actually, Bob, you mentioned how many years you were working at that business, this business, and then obviously you just mentioned about your time in AXREM. I thought you were only 25.
I was just going to say, Melanie,
I'm like the Queen. I'm like the Queen, though. She had 2 birthdays. I have one every 2 years.
I was just going to say, it's more that's more Bob's mental capacity, 25, when he's the last one standing at 4 a.m. when we're at UKIO.
Do you know what? It's all them years of like hardcore socializing that's done it, right? It's just, I feel like, you found like the secret to youth, or some sort of invincibility spell even.
I'd wish to take the credit for it, but I can't. It's because I think that I'm married to such a lovely wife who's teetotal, and I think the problem is with it, as you said, I enjoy the company of all the people that I work with, and it's customers, it's as you say, work colleagues, etc. People think, I think, in our industry that we get together all the time. If I look at UKIO as a great example, there's people who go to UKIO from my own company who I see perhaps twice a year. And that, I think, sums it up. It's one place where you see customers. You think you see customers every month, every 6 months. You don't. Sometimes you don't see them from one UKIO to another, because we are very busy people. So I think, for me, as I say, it's great. But if you've got that environment and you've got that chance to be with everyone, then you try to make the maximum of it. And I think that's what I try and do.
You are the life, soul, and the heartbeat behind a lot of, it's members like you that help gel everyone together. It's like the glue that kind of holds everyone together, and you being the life and soul is what does that. So right, over to Mel for a quirky question.
Yes. So my quirky question time. So if you had a time machine, would you go to the future, or would you go back in the past, and why? So Saduf, do you want to start with that one?
Oh, crikey. I think I'd go back. I think I'd go back to the past.
How far in the past?
Just my own past.
Oh, okay.
I want to go back and have a do-over of certain things. But also, I feel like I would advocate harder for change in certain areas so that the future could be better. Yeah. So I don't want to go back in like a regretful way. I don't want to go back to, too far. I just want to go back and use what I know now to set better foundations for the future, and like get the chance to fix what could have been different, and maybe just create like that butterfly effect or that ripple effect that would improve my world and the one that everyone then inherits from us. I think that could be so powerful. Right?
Yeah, good answer. I like it. Excellent. And Bob, what about you?
Well, what a question. And firstly, I'm going to say I can't answer if I want to go back to 1988 and have cup final day again, win Wimbledon, won the cup, or go forward to a number of years and we win the Champions League. So I'm not sure on that one. But but no, I would say I'd love to go back. I'd love to go back and do it again. Yeah. I would love to say, to pick it up what we just laughed about. I'd love to be 25 again, and then have that opportunity with what I've learned to take that forward again with all these great new technologies like AI and all the things that we've been talking about. I think we could make such a difference. I look back in my career, and as I said earlier, the film to digital was a major thing for this country, and that was a real game changer. I think we're at that point now with the technology. I think we've got such wonderful technology. People are living longer. That's because of the way we treat people and our healthcare system. And I think, again, with adding all this new technology, I expect to live to 150. So there you go. That's why I'd like to go back. But I think that's probably the best thing. But I think there's a great opportunity for, all of our future leaders to take what we've created and take this forward. I'd love to come back, maybe, and that's why I say maybe to come back in the future in 100 years and see what they've done, see what it looks like. And then you could be proud that you started the journey.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, Bob. I don't want to grow old. And if I could live to 150 and still have a fulfilling life, I hope that's what happened. They say time flies when you're having fun. I must be having too much fun because I blinked and I was 21 and now I'm over double that. So I absolutely agree with you. But I'd like to thank you both for being on our show today.
Hang on, does that mean we don't get to find out what you two would do?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
we don't get to say goodbye yet. I want to know,
Yes.
Sally. So are you saying you'd go back, and then Mel, what's yours?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. Do you know what? I always ask it. I've never actually thought about it myself.
And no one's asked you?
No.
That's because you've had the two best people on this show. Just saying.
I know. Yeah. What would I do? I don't know. I'm a little bit scared about the future because you just don't know what's going to happen, do you? So, do you know what? Until you two have said what you've said today, I probably wouldn't even have thought like that. But I actually quite like that. Whereas I have no regrets in my life, but actually to go back with the knowledge and experience and stuff I've got now, maybe it could just be more. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll have to think more. But yeah,
I've just put in a development request for a time machine. Don't worry, we'll get one done.
And Saduf, I would definitely go back because I'd love my life to be longer, but I'd also love to spend time with friends and family that are no longer with us. So I'd love to go back and be able to do that. So absolutely. Right, now you need to let me do my outro, Saduf.
Yes. Yes. All right.
Right, so thanks Saduf and Bob for joining us today. I think we've all found out a lot more about you both and the Imaging IT Special Focus Group, which is a really proactive group within AXREM. A big thank you to Bob and Saduf for joining us, and thank you to all of our listeners.
During Series 5, we've been showcasing all of AXREM's special focus groups, bringing you all the up-to-date news and information. I personally am very proud of what each and every group has been working on and has achieved. We hope you have all enjoyed hearing more, and keep a listen out for after summer for the next edition of AXREM Insights, where we'll be having discussions about healthcare hot topics and speaking to key professionals across the sector. See you soon. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to hit subscribe or feel free to share the podcast with friends.